Hey, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. We have a panel discussion prepared for you on designing the AI native L&D operating model. My name is Shannon Howard. I'm going to be the host of today's conversation. Our panel today features some friends and experts from EPAM and from Harbinger Group, and my colleague Dave Brandon is going to actually be facilitating the panel. So I'll have them introduce themselves in a moment. But before that, just want to do some brief housekeeping. First of all, this webinar is being recorded, and we will send you the recording after the webinar is over. So if you want to go back to it, take some notes, share it with a friend, you can do that. If closed captions are helpful, those are available for you at the bottom of your Zoom webinar screen. There's also a Q&A box down there. So as we go, if you have questions, feel free to add those in. If it makes sense for us to kind of pull those in as we're talking with the panel, we'll do that. If not, we'll have some time at the end for Q&A as well. And then the chat is open. So if you want to go ahead, introduce yourself, let us know where you're calling in from. We'd love to hear from you, know that you're here with us today. And then also after this webinar is over, you're going to get a brief survey. That survey is really helpful for us. It helps us know how we did. Hopefully you loved it, what you got out of it, and then also what more you want to learn or hear about. So we use all of those surveys. We read all the feedback and we use that to inform our content and programs so we can help you to succeed in your career. So please take a moment at the end to fill that out. This is also the second webinar today in a three-part series on AI in education. So if you missed our last session on, we call it How to AI, how to think about AI, you can catch that recording. And then after this, we're going to be talking about Intellum's AI innovation. So hopefully you can join us for that as well. And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce or have our panelists actually introduce themselves. So Shrikant, if you want to kick us off.
Hey, thanks, Shannon. Hello, everyone. My name is Shrikant Padatil. I am President and CTO of Harbinger Group. It's my pleasure to be here on this panel discussion today, talking about this topic about AI native operating model. Um, in my role, I focus on how to merge services offering, which is around HR and learning, with new technology and take it to the market. So that's my job. And as Harbinger, our focus is to see how we can help organizations, whether it's product companies or enterprises in the HR learning space, transform the way people work and learn. So, looking forward to this conversation um, with my fellow panelists.
Awesome. And Keth?
Hi, everyone. My name is Keth Crotty. I'm with EPAM Systems. I have two roles with EPAM. EPAM is a engineering and consulting firm. I spend my time helping educational technology companies build their platforms and tools, which obviously involves a lot of AI solutions. I also work as a consultant with talent and HR teams on how they can effectively implement AI as part of their learning ecosystems.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Thank you, Kath and Srikanth. It's really great to have you both on the panel today. I'm Dave Brandon. I'm the VP of Alliances here at Intellum, and I'll be moderating the session for today. I've been in the learning and development, learning technology space for about 30 years now, holding several roles as a practitioner, as part of L&D teams, HR teams. I've been involved or been part of the professional services organizations and been part of SaaS technology organizations for the most part of my career. So you can say I've been around a while to see our industry evolve from whiteboards and projectors to the birth of SCORM, e-learning, virtual learning, LMS, LCMS, LXPs, and now AI. And AI is everywhere, right? And everybody's using AI in some capacity, from consumers that are creating videos of their dogs dancing and singing, to professionals that have a co-pilot, a personal assistant to help them be more efficient and productive. Practitioners that want to be the best in their craft, right? From instructional designers, developers, executives, stakeholders that want to prove value. You see AI in the corporate settings, obviously, where they're focused on saving money, making money, mitigating risk, and then definitely globally. I'm pretty sure AI is in every conversation at Davos this week at the World Economic Forum. So really exciting times. AI is everywhere, and because of this, and because it touches so many different aspects of what we do as practitioners and professionals in the L&D field, this gives us an opportunity to really redefine what learning looks like now and tomorrow. And what a great place to start. Start that by having a conversation about AI native L&D operating model, right? So Keth and Shrikant, let's start by grounding this a little bit because AI native gets thrown around a lot. When you say an AI native learning operating model, what does that actually mean for how a learning team is structured and runs day to day? And most importantly, like what changes for our learning team on a Monday morning if they are truly operating this way?
Well,
So
Dave, I can go first on
Sure,
that,
sure,
and then
sure.
maybe Ket can kind of add it. Um, so, from my experience, what I'm seeing over the last year or 18 months is that more and more L&D teams are deploying AI or data-based intelligence that AI is collecting across the organization, across platforms in some way, and making it central to their decision making, be it any kind of a learning initiative, like a reskilling or onboarding, rather than just starting and doing it traditionally. I'm seeing organizations using AI to figure out how they can customize that whole program to their individual or their learners specific needs before actually deploying, and during the course of the program as well, using AI to do some parts or drive intelligence to create new workflows or learning paths that are intelligently crafted, that helps the learner engage better, do things and learn faster on the job as well. So overall, AI is kind of being used to kind of decide and organize learning, but also at the same time, curate on the learning on the go. So that's what we are seeing. And one specific example that comes to my mind, we built this platform about 6 months back for an enterprise organization. They called it like Skill Sense. The primary goal was to reskill and upskill rapidly, and they already had skilling platforms and LMSs and so forth. So this was built on top of it, where the manager or the individual who wants to upskill or reskill would go and kind of uh, articulate their problem statement, and AI kind of, the thinking engine would go and create a plan of how to execute, what's the best way to do it. And that transformation plan was then given to the manager or the individual to then go ahead and implement it as a way of doing that or conducting that training. So yeah, so to my earlier point, like it is being used as an intelligence-based system, or a kind of a place where you think, plan, and then do the activity. So that's how I'm seeing it, like an AI native learning model, operating model as.
That's perfect, Shrikant. Changing workflows, using AI to take the legacy ways of developing, managing, deploying training, and finding efficiencies, finding better ways to make impact, and in all different types of use cases, right? So really exciting stuff. I think it's not just not even just a tool, but it's the different roles and the people that are going to be involved in that operating model, right?
Sure.
So Kat, your
yeah,
perspective?
I would agree with everything that was said there. I would say kind of the first step is AI is embedded into, day-to-day learning operations, and um, it's it's driven by actual outcomes. So we move from this concept of L&D and training producing content, and it's measured on consumption of content. And we need to move past that and start looking at the data and help talent and HR and learning own that outcome of producing results, whether that's faster time to competency or other business outcomes. And that takes time and that's challenging, but that's kind of the objective of that model. Um, I kind of see two phases that organizations go on their way to get there. And the first is efficiency and maybe cost takeout, where there's a lot of areas where, tools that organizations have access to can start to really save time and make, learning more efficient. And that's really kind of maybe you're producing better content, maybe you're saving time, you're reducing effort and hours. And that can be done pretty rapidly by, taking advantage of powerful tools that they might have access to. The second step of taking ownership of those outcomes is more difficult. And you need to get access to data. You need to break open different silos of data. And you really need to create an overarching strategy behind your AI initiative to really get to that point.
Yeah, and that second part is to me is like really important because um the your because of the interactions with the business, with HR to talk about outcomes, your conversations as an L&D organization is different, right? So like you said, it's not let's create training and then go measure it afterwards. It's let's our conversations, who we speak to before to get the input that we need to create the training,
Mhm.
the using AI to even just kind of design and capture what we really need to develop for training, and then using AI to go and execute and develop training, develop the training. So lots of different aspects. So and it does impact that whole operating model, right? Cool, cool. Anything else to add on to that, Srikant?
No, I think I agree with whatever Kat said. I think it's a combination of things, and and that makes perfect sense. And from when you talk about the operating model.
Okay. All right. So now we got the definition part of it, but let's make it real. Like, where are you seeing AI actually working today in learning programs, and what changed because of it?
I can jump in on this one. There are, I guess, there's probably 100 different kind of HR and human capital uh, uh, areas in which we're applying AI at EPAM for efficiency or just better results overall. But this entire knowledge kind of management process, if we look at learning and education as giving people the right information that's current and up to date and accurate at the right time, um, you know, right when they need it, and in the right modality, the right format for them. Um, that is an area where a lot of the projects I'm working on, it's very interesting because with AI, with a better content engineering process, you can actually optimize your content, um, you know, from inception for AI. And that allows you to use it for formal training, to support workers in the flow of work. It allows you to micronize that content so that they're getting just the right information at just the right time. This is obviously kind of a larger, a complex project, but if we look at, training outside of just formal training that maybe people do when they're onboarding or kind of continuous formal training and really say, how are we going to help our people do their job? How are we going to help them do their tasks and develop the skill sets they need? Training them twice or three times a year is not enough. You have to support them at the time and the point of need. And AI is a huge enabler of this capability.
Srikant?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think, AI kind of, gives you that additional capability where, if you do the content engineering right, then the way you can create different forms of learning is probably the possibilities kind of extend quite a bit than the traditional way of doing things. So one high impact area, and I think Kat alluded to that, is what we have seen implemented quite a bit is the onboarding process. Like, how does AI actually help in better onboarding, or you know not onboarding just usually when we do onboarding, when it comes to specialized skills or jobs, you have an onboarding process that spans 1 month or 2 months or 3 months or sometimes weeks depending upon the nature of the work. And then the individual is supposed to kind of execute things, and if he or she is not able to do that, then they go back and retrain themselves and stuff. How in many situations the way things work is, the entire concept, but it is the small bits of specialized information that you need on the job that's needed. So one example that we had was, we were building a learning kind of an onboarding plan for cooks in fast food restaurants, and they would get onboarded, but these there was a high turnover as well. So you couldn't like spend huge amount of time onboarding. So onboarding would last like a few days or weeks at the max. And then when they were actually doing the jobs, there were special instructions or menu changes and stuff like that that would come up, and it was very difficult to deliver that sort of training where somebody has to go look up something and stuff like that. So an Alexa kind of a delivery model was created. So again, the content was engineered in such a form that if a question was asked to the bot, the delivery happened in through voice, right? I mean, the same training material was adapted to a voice enabled assistant, and that increased productivity and overall reduced the number of mistakes and efficiency. The people felt better who were learning, and they thought that they had this extra job aid, which was very useful. And at the same time, from an organization and customer perspective, it improved the overall engagement and satisfaction. So yeah, I mean, AI and content engineering, if it's done very well, then you can deliver it in different forms and different ways.
Yeah, I really like that part about it because not just the AI and the way you deliver the modalities that you deliver, but really how AI changes the way that you engineer your content, right? So I remember way back we didn't have all this stuff. It was, I created an instructor guide, a trainee guide. I went and delivered. I had job aid or training aids that I would go deliver in the classroom behind the podium, and then that was it. Then things shifted to where I had more technology. Um, it really is. Your instructional design process is different, right? So now with AI, everything that you're talking about, and I think someone mentioned about hyper personalization. Like when you're engineering your content, it's not just, hey, I'm going to go engineer it and it's going to be page turners or static. I'm not just going to engineer it for the different types of learning, the adult learning theory. Um, it's just so many different aspects of it now that you really have to factor in how you design that training. So your instructional design process is going to change. Your development, and the e-learning development or the content development is going to change, and then obviously on the user experience end of it is going to change as well, right? So I love it. I think it kind of pulling it back into this whole operating model. AI is going to impact all different aspects of what we do,
Yeah.
right?
We started to apply it after we helped kind of optimize content engineering. I mean, there's a continuous revision process, right? And what we found is sometimes the subject matter experts creating the content, they're not on the ground floor. They're not having first line of conversations with customers or implementing the product or working with the tools. And there was a tacit knowledge gap where the formalized training and formalized processes hadn't adapted yet to the, let's say, the people out in the street doing the actual work. And this is another area where AI is very interesting because it would be really difficult to have, I don't know, a lineman go write out everything they know in their head that hasn't been documented. But AI can do this very effectively. And you can do it through interviews. You can do it through scraping conversations with clients or support calls. And you can actually identify where there's gaps between formal training and the supporting knowledge and where those need to be revisioned or updated to what's actually working in the field. And so the quality of the content you're producing and that speed to revision and get the right information out into the right people's hands is incredibly fast if you use AI, kind of intelligently.
Yeah, that definitely very, very, very exciting. We'll talk about there's a couple of questions later on down the line. I think we can kind of touch on that, but that to me is huge. Um, so Srikant, a quick reality check here. Like most organizations aren't ripping out their LMS or the LXP right now. So how are these teams practically extending what they already have with AI without really blowing everything up? Like what's working? What are some of the foundational decisions that matter to make this happen if you want to scale or focus on safety?
Well, that's an interesting question, Dave. And as I feel, this is a time that enterprise users or, big or small, need to really look at their technology stack because uh, if your LMS or LXP is not, giving you the AI capabilities inherently, then it might be a good time to make a switch because you're going to build whatever AI you're going to orchestrate on top of it. You're going to build it for next 4 or 5 years. So I don't think that you shouldn't look at a if you've been running a system which is 5 or 10 years old, maybe you need to change. But assuming that you just migrated a few years back and the systems are latest and they have added all the AI capabilities, um, the way organizations need to think about is, of course, the LMS or the LXP is the delivery platform, is the system of record in a way, but how do you orchestrate your AI workflow on top of it? So it needs to connect with your CRM, it needs to connect with your performance management, it needs to connect with your skilling platform if that's separate, your whole knowledge management and the LMS, right? So typically you need to think about the workflow that works best from the kind of type of training or learning that you want to deliver or continuously operate within your organization. So you need to create some sort of workflows over and above. If you're not thinking that to change the LMS and have this built in for you, you will have to think about how you create these workflows and how you make it agentic and such that when your learning manager or when your user learner is going to a particular system and requesting for a learning aid, then it kind of curates and brings you the right piece of information so that you can go ahead and consume it without thinking twice, because there's a lot of self-service that you are trying to enable out of this and engagement that you're going to drive. So I think this orchestration layer that you would put on top, which could be specific to your upskilling, reskilling, continuous performance education, or whatever type of training that you're trying to execute within the organization. If you have an ability to do an agentic workflow on top of existing platform and consider these platforms as tools, then you have an opportunity not to rip these platforms apart, but build something on top of it that works for your organization. And I've seen organizations do that or take that approach, um, if their systems are compatible in terms of being used from that perspective.
Perfect, perfect. Kath, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with all of that. So generally what we're seeing is people aren't replacing, their functional systems. They keep their CRM, they keep their LMS, they generally keep their, their HR and HRIS and other tool sets in place. As long as you can get the underlying data that you need out of those systems, then you can build that orchestration layer and implement AI alongside and in addition to those tools. And the goal of that would be to, break down those individual silos and, the limited experience within any one of those systems and enable new capabilities with AI that none of those individual systems could potentially do on their own. And so perhaps you're going to create, training specific content still within your LMS and content authoring platform. But when it comes to an experience of a user, you want to be able to use the context and the data from your LMS. You want to be able to use the context and the data from your knowledge management, and you can start to get into customers and other types of users and identity management. That's really where the power of that orchestration layer comes in. You can certainly use it to automate processes, but that ability to understand the broader context of user journey across systems becomes extremely powerful.
That's really good. That's really good. The one thing that I want to highlight to that is like when you're looking at like how do you extend, without replacing these systems? I think earlier we talked about like where does AI impact the operating model from the way I
Mm.
engineer and create content, deliver it, efficiencies, like all the things that you just talked about was around like the really the main objective of all the programs and education that you're doing is to make business impact, right? So um, to me, that's one important thing to really think about is that in this AI era that we're in, you're focusing on L&D's thinking about our operating model, but so is sales, so is operations, and so is finance, all the different functions within an organization. So you really got to think about that enterprise AI operating model, right? And that's where the things that you just talked about was around the data. Like how useful is this data? When I combine it with my sales and finance data that now I can and use to either have actions or use to drive business and make impacts to the organization and so forth, right? So I think that's the part. It's like really taking a look at your core systems to see is it AI ready to improve our processes and how I engineer courses and deliver courses, or how AI ready is it to really make a big impact, and how does it fit in that AI enterprise AI space? I think those are definitely different ways to kind of look at it. Um, so I want to go to something a little bit different. I think Srikanth, you mentioned this a couple times around performance outcomes, or even let's talk about the shift where people are saying, "Hey, I'm trying to, what does it actually look like when a team moves from just courses delivered to skills enablement or performance outcomes?" And I think someone from the audience had that question as well, where they're talking about, they build all these programs, but like what happens to the insights and the data, completion data that we have, right? So how does that play into, or how does AI play into that? And Kat, if you want to jump onto
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I'll jump on this. So there's a lot of different ways to measure this, and what an outcome looks like is going to be different based on that person's role and the skills that are being, measured and the business impact that is expected from that role. And so there's some foundational work that to really get mature into this space, you have to do. You have to understand the work that people are doing. And that needs to be broken into tasks, and that needs to be identified in skills, and skills need to be mapped into jobs, right? And then people have those roles or those jobs. And now you can start to see how the training people are going to be needed and the outcome of these people doing their job. And if it's sales, right, there's different metrics you're going to measure in sales versus if, they're handling support calls or if they're, um, you know, uh, doing implementations or working with physical tools. This is where the challenge comes from, which is how do we empower, the training and L&D team to actually have access and some ownership of these outcomes. So it's a continuous cycle. That doesn't mean they're managing these end workers, right? They're not responsible for those people, but you do want that loop um, to be connected so that as the training content, as the learning is produced, and as they start to uh, train, they can connect it to team performance or individual performance at the end of the day, and they can continuously improve and adapt as time goes on. And that requires working outside of, L&D. You need to get business strategy behind this. It's not just a training strategy. This is a business strategy, and that requires leadership buy-in, and then that technical capability of getting access to the right data to inform your choices. You're mute, Dave.
Srikanth, on your anything to add to that?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense what just gets said. And we have been also being asked this question, saying that, okay, we are using AI, how do we measure differently, right? Earlier it was about, like you said, courses delivered or courses completed. Now there is this whole skilling element that is out there. So one metric that we have been using is the amount of personalization that AI enables. Um, and be it how you design your content or be it how somebody consumes that content, right? So, and we all know that, the learning industry has been, kind of always thinking about how to personalize things for learners, right? And because we know the more personalized it is, it will drive the user engagements, like the Netflix model and the whole LXP paradigm and so forth. Kind of emphasized and they were passionately driving that. With AI, I think you can go a step further. It gives you the capability to do some of these things at scale and at levels where earlier it was very costly. For example, if you are in a classroom or if you're taking a learning path which was designed for a certain type of role, then you, irrespective of what your skill level was or aptitude was, you you had to follow that path. I mean, even though digitally there were different branches and paths available, but it was not still tuned to the specific needs of the end user. With AI, I think, we talked about the whole content engineering and how, if it done right, it can be, uh, granularized or personalized to an extent that it is specifically targeting improving us individual skills from A to B. And that's what probably you can measure and see if whatever systems you're putting in place and whatever the AI you're putting in place, whether that particular personalization aspect you are able to extend beyond the current systems that you use 6 months or 12 months back. And specifically in one example, what we saw is there was leadership training material that was created by a large content catalog company, and they were in the manufacturing business and they had created it for manufacturing industry. And but as they grew, the same catalog was given to leadership training in retail, in healthcare, and so forth. And there seven or 800 courses, they couldn't change every image and every, video in there, right? Because it would be, enormous amount of time and money. But with AI now, the ability to do that, if that project took about 12 months, now you could do it in 3 months and still deliver that value of being personalizing it to a specific industry. So those kind of, initiatives are now kicking off, and people are trying to make sure that, they're catering to the demographics of the users and the needs that earlier were, out of reach, just for economic reasons or, time to markets reasons. So, and that you could see in the whole engagement going up, as well as, number of people consuming it and using it as well. So,
Yep.
so that's how I think, it's moving away from the course delivered to actually getting it to, really uh, delivering the outcomes that a learning or a training program is supposed to deliver, but personalizing it.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. No, did you have something else to add, Kath?
I was just going to say one of my favorite business outcomes from a L&D perspective is just time to competency,
Mm,
right? And because it when you start to get into, let's say, upskilling existing workers who are all in different levels, right? The data becomes a little bit more complex, and that personalization becomes extremely important. But most organizations are continuously onboarding and trying to get people up to speed. And time to competency is a really good metric that you can start to look at. Like, how quickly can we take on new sales team or new support team or whatever the role is, and get them into the job and producing at the level that's expected. So that's a really good outcome that I like to look at. I,
mm,
I think everything that was said before, as far as the personalization, incredibly important. And that becomes really natively supported once you start to implement AI more effectively into your business processes. It's a natural outcome of using AI well. You've micronized content, it's been digested, you can change the modality, you can modify it for different users. It's adaptive, it's personalized, and that is what you can use to then drive those business outcomes.
Right. Cool, cool, cool. So there's a couple of questions on that Q&A section. Um, so to talking about one question talking about like how do you ensure that the tools and processes you are building will provide the value for your learners without increasing costs? So uh, definitely AI, one, it gives you the visibility, it gives you the capability to measure to show attribution of the programs that you are creating. So the part that you just talked about is how quickly can I get to competency? The time that it takes for you to create that training, deliver that training, and then show impact within an organization. That right there, one, you can do with AI, capture with AI, and really show ROI with it, right? So that's one
Mhm.
aspect. In line with that is another question around, hey, LMSs do not provide insights to the LMS administrator or the program developer to proactively course correct. With AI, that right there is going to change. Everything that Srikanth and Kat talked about around data, not just being able to consume that data to create better training and more direct, and then course correct soon as you deliver it, but it's being able to capture all the data that's happening within your course, within your system, comparing it with your business data, like your CRM data, your finance data, operation data. That's that orchestration piece that Kath was talking about. And AI really it makes it so much easier, right? And so much easier to process right away versus let's go measure, wait a quarter to see if it makes any impacts. And then even then, what are we measuring? Just course completions and statuses. Is it really making an impact, right? So AI gives you a lot of those capabilities. I think one part of it is looking at the systems that you have, if it's your LMS, and then if you're not getting that out of your LMS, the next conversation is how do I start having conversation at the enterprise AI level to do that orchestration to be able to capture the insights and the information that I need to make good decisions with my training. So really cool stuff. And I think that I think what you'll see here is, for each question, a lot of this stuff kind of hinges off of what we do with data, the quality of the
Mm.
data that we have within AI. So very exciting stuff. All right, let's bring this home. We got a few minutes left, but if you're advising a learning leader who wants to be ready for the next 12 to 18 months, what are the top actions they should take this quarter? And more importantly, what should they stop doing? Right?
Um,
And,
I'll,
I,
I'll,
and okay, go ahead with
I'll
that.
jump in. Just because we just mentioned it and it's at the top of my mind, I'll say stop measuring success by volume of courses delivered, or hours consumed, and start trying to tie this to actual business impact. Time to onboard, some other business impact that's valuable. That will also go a long way to helping L&D budgets, right? If you're asking for money to build training and your budget is based on how many hours of training I'm building versus driving sales or adapting to new market challenges or any other type of business income outcome, it's going to be a much easier conversation with leadership if you have it tied back to that business outcome. Second, a lot of the challenges that you're going to run into before the technology challenges are going to be people challenges. There's data silos that we talked about, but the truth is each of these different systems that we want to integrate data across is owned by people. And those people aren't necessarily all on the same page. And this is where getting stakeholder involvement, getting some leadership involvement and ownership, and letting them understand why this is critical to the organization and those business outcomes is going to be huge. And then we would often start this type of process with some type of workshop, which one of the outcomes of that workshop would be like a prioritization matrix, some kind of value versus effort matrix, where you're trying to identify what are the quick wins and what are the major initiatives that we can tackle that will produce the greatest result. And that might be through automation. It might be through, full implementation of an orchestration layer, or just starting to utilize some of the tools you already have in your hands for those quick wins, right? And so you can start to implement and get experience with AI just by using what you have, but by going through that planning session to understand like the value versus effort, you can start to identify where the most value is going to be for your organization. So those are a few of the things that I would probably tackle first.
Srikant.
Yeah, interesting question, Dave. And I think Keth has covered uh, almost. I'll try to kind of put my words around something similar and not uh, do the exact same thing. Uh, what I feel, in most organizations that I'll answer the what not to do. Um, we have observed that, there is a technology team, there's a content team, and there is analytics, right, or business outcomes. Now, if you are a learning leader, you need to probably, and with AI as such a technology, if you're trying to drive something, then you need to probably think across. You need someone probably from each department, and kind of brainstorm with how are you going to best use AI in your organization by combining the capabilities of all these three departments. So you shouldn't be thinking about only what, what content can do or what technology can enable or what analytics can enable. But if you think across, you probably will get more results of using and designing your AI program. So you shouldn't be thinking department, but thinking holistically. That's probably one message in terms of what you shouldn't do. What you should do in terms of way you think, maybe this gives you an opportunity to move away from roles or, uh, program level thinking to more skills based. And that's where, the learning is going. And we talked a little bit before. So as a leader, you can talk about, how do you think at the skill level? Because that's when you're actually touching or talking about an individual or a learner, and how can you improve the skills on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis? Is there something that you can do differently that can, by thinking in terms of skills? The second thing we touched upon in our conversation is how can you make the learning more engaging by personalizing it? So whether you re-engineer your content or get new technology or create a workflow, whatever may be your way of doing it, can you drive engagement through better personalization? Because AI makes it much more cost efficient or feasible than mm, your earlier ways of doing it. And the third thing, I think, where you can get quick bang for the buck is if you introduce a lot of learning aids for people on the job, depending upon the organization. If the organization has more gig workforce, or or a very large organization with different kinds of departments, um, if you can use AI to create a lot of job aids, which are small nuggets using your existing piece of content, that could really, create a high impact within the organization. And suddenly, you get noticed saying that, oh, because of AI, now we're getting all these prompts and suggestions and ideas, which earlier we had to go find ourselves in different tools and our LMSs, and take the course and do that. So those are the two, three things that probably, you as a leader you could think of. But I'm sure there are more, and Keith also covered quite a bit. So
Yeah. No,
depending on your organization, you pick and choose.
yeah, and I appreciate that, Shrikant, because but I think the one thing, and it's what Kat said and what you said, and what I hear all the time in my conversations when I'm consulting and talking to clients is that um, it's that first point that you talked about. Like we're talking about operating model here. It's across, it's holistic across the operating model. I'm not just focusing on content. I'm not just focusing on my authoring tool or my LMS or my course or is it my dashboard? It really is taking a look at your whole L&D operating model and trying to determine where can I insert AI? Where am I going to make the most impact? And, at some organizations, it might be content. Some organizations, it might be process. Some organizations, it might be data. But if I'm talking to a learning leader, that's the very first part. It really taking a look, because then everything else will make sense. When they start to kind of poke around, look under the hood of each of those different segments, they're going to uncover some really good things that helps them make decisions of where to best use AI. So we're running out of time, but I do have one more question. So to close this out, what's the one change AI is driving that you believe will have the biggest impact in learning moving forward? And I'll let you go with that one, Srikant.
There's one big thing, I feel, overall, specifically when it comes to L&D, I think this whole skills-based way of thinking, um, and using all our systems, processes, content to really impact all types of learners. Because ultimately, when somebody wants to, they're skilled at something, they want to keep improving, right? And if AI can really enable that, and people who are designing curriculums and systems, they can focus on that skills part and they get it right, uh, they can very quickly, uh, I mean, drive productivity and business outcomes faster. So I feel, if that really happens, then we'll see a sea change in uh, how people think about LMSs and content and training, and really look forward to, using it much more effectively than just deploying these systems and not getting the results and getting frustrated changing this again and again. But I don't think it's about that. It's about, getting the skills part right and the engagement part right. Then it's like a Netflix kind of a thing, right? You find your own way of and your own content, and then, it keeps on engaging you. It kind of entertaining you in that segment, but in this segment, skilling you and taking you ahead. So that's what I think.
Yep. Kath?
Yeah, I'm going to agree. I think AI enables organizations to move to a skill-based strategy, try to transform into skill-based organizations. And that was incredibly difficult, prior to AI. And so everything that was said, I agree with. I would just add to this. I think the need for organizations to begin moving in this direction is becoming absolutely critical because the speed at which skills need to adapt and change, the how adaptive organizations are going to have to be with their workforce. It's no longer you train to do a career and it's was decades and then was years between needing completely new skill sets. People need to be continuously learning, they need to be continuously adapting, and so this move to a skill-based model is becoming really important. And I think that's the most exciting thing about AI in L&D and training is it actually enables this pretty effectively.
That's good. That's good. I mean, there's so many different parts. I don't know if I can only pick one thing. The one thing that really stands out to me is just data. Like if you think not just in learning AI, but just across AI, it's data. It's large language models. It's your the data that you're feeding, the training data that you're feeding your LLMs, all these different things, right? So I think I think that right there, being able to have access to data, being able to have a complete set of data, being able to use that data to make
Yeah.
influence, to create actions. Those are all the things that I feel like us as an L&D leader that's trying to make a difference within an organization, that to me is something that I probably didn't have, right? Before, where legacy data that I had was completions and statuses, and that's all I could contribute to the business. So to me, that is one area where if I'm a learning leader, like I would jump on that right away to see like where can I be more engaged now. So, anyways, Shannon, I know you're pushing on me to try to close this, so I appreciate it. Srikanth, Kat, really good conversations, and I'm sure we can talk about this for several hours. So thank you.
Well, thank you
Thank you.
everybody for joining us today. Shrikant, Ket, thank you so much for sharing your insights, and Dave for the great moderation of today's panel. We do have one more session for you today. So in the chat, you'll find the link to the What's New, What's Next webinar with Intellum, where we'll be talking about Intellum's AI innovations. We'd love to have you join us there. And with that, we'll send you all off. Hopefully, we'll see you in the next webinar. And again, thank you again to our panelists, and thank you all for showing up.
Thank
All
you.
right. I'll see you later.